Video Game Journal 8. This week I'm looking at an MMORPG. Now, what game do you think I'm talking about? I'm betting that most people would think of WoW, World of Warcraft, or maybe Final Fantasy XIV. There's also the strong possibility that people would be like, what did you just say? Well, it's none of those answers. For those confused, I'll explain in a second. This week we are playing the MMORPG Everquest. This game was one of the first games to ever explore this genre of MMORPG. But first, let's get to some gameplay. I'm going to be doing a different format this week because I think it lends itself better to the game. So I'll be doing some commentary over some gameplay while in some slower parts giving you the script that I have written. As you can see, I'm getting a quest from council member Vakdra. And the way that they actually give quests is very interesting in this game. As you can see, my cursor's down here, and I'm reading what council member Vakdra is saying. And I would click that blue word right there to continue the quest. And this is how you get quests and you interact with quest givers in this game. It was a little hard to get used to at first because I'm used to playing more modern MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV. But after I got into it, I really started liking it. Anyways, let's talk about that line I said earlier, MMORPG. It's actually two acronyms put together. The first half is MMO, which stands for Massive Multiplayer Online Game. This means that the game has a large amount of players on the same server at the same time. RPG stands for Role-Playing Game. Games like this usually have the player assuming the role of character in a fictional setting. It's a broad genre. Anything from Final Fantasy VII to Witcher 3, Fallout 4 to even the tabletop game D&D. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to it. So, as we stick that together, we get Massive Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game, or MMORPG, which is literally, by definition, a game with a large amount of players on a server where the players are all assuming the role of a character in a fictional setting. These games usually have the player choosing from a large amount of customization options to make a wholly unique character, within reason. Things like the character's race, sex, look, and how they defend themselves. These characters then work their way through a story that usually has them working with other players at points to clear difficult content and fighting for the realm against computer enemies and scripted boss fights. Usually there's at least somewhat of an element of player versus player content as well. These types of games are my absolute favorite. I play Final Fantasy XIV more than any other game and is far and away my favorite. This week, however, we're looking at Everquest, which is the origin of this genre that I love so much. Looking back at the gameplay, it appears that I've gone to the third floor of this city that I'm in. I believe I'm looking for a pile of bones. And that was another thing that I got confused on when I was playing this game. I'm used to there being like way markers or other types of clues onto what I'm looking for. You know, at least the item may be glowing so I can tell what I'm supposed to pick up. In EverQuest, you kind of just have to figure it out. It tells you a roundabout location, but it doesn't really give you a way to get there. You have to remember how to get there. We'll see the map at some point on this, and if you look at the map, you understand why I'm not using it. It looks like it's been drawn and then immediately put in the game, and by draw, I'm giving that a lot more credit than it's actually worth. And here we see the combat. It's not the most expansive thing. I basically just click on icons off to the left screen that you can't see that are for different spells, and I also have an auto attack, which is how I can swing my sword. But outside of that, I'm just sitting here. So while we wait for the dusty skeleton to die, we'll go back to some facts. EverQuest was released on March 16th, 1999 on Windows. It was developed by Variant Interactive and 989 Studios. The actual concept for the game was conceived by John Smedley in 1996. The world itself was designed by a team headed up by Brad McQuaid, Steve Clover, and Bill Trost. They based the game off of games called MUD, M-U-D. Jeez, another acronym. Which were text-based multi-user dungeons. Games like this were called Sojourn and Toro Mud. They also wanted to improve on two MMORPGs that came out in 1996 called Meridian 59 and The Realm Online. They also drew from Deka Muds, which was another mud that also inspired D&D. Anyone familiar with the tabletop game will see the similarities it has to Everquest. Yep, still fighting the skeleton. Well, while I'm doing that, let's move on to what the player's character customizations options were. At launch, the game had 12 playable races. These were humans, high elves, wood elves, dark elves, half elves, Erudites, barbarians, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, ogres, and trolls. With later expansions, they introduced 4 more races. This was the Ixar, lizard people, basically, Vashir, cat people, Froglok, frog people, and Draken, dragon people. And as we're looking at it, Rosak, my character here, is a Draken. His name's not actually Rosak AFK. I just came back to the character after that and couldn't figure out how to get AFK off of my name. AFK stands for away from keyboard, by the way. After this, the player would choose a class, which basically determined how the player would approach combat. They had melee classes, which included warrior, monk, rogue, and berserker. Priest classes, which were cleric, druid, and shaman. Caster classes, which were magicians, necromancers, and enchanters. And finally, they had the hybrid classes, which were paladin, shadow knights, bard, ranger, and beast lord. My character is actually a shadow knight, which basically means that they can use bladed weapons and disease magic from what I can tell. I've decided to give my character a claymore because I like my characters in MMOs to have a longsword. And I did like the magic that I was able to use. Oh, finally beat him. I don't think this is actually where I could get the bones that I needed. Yeah, those bones over there. See, that's the actual quest item I needed. But all the actual quest gave me was that I needed bones from this area, and they had to be of some sort of dusty variety. So that's why I attacked the dusty skeleton, thinking that he would drop it. But no, they were just laying on the ground there, blending into the environment. You get used to it after a while, but this does really grate on you if you're used to more up-to-date MMOs like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. Looks like I'm in combat again, so I'll go back to reading. Alright, so this game is massive, and it still gets updates to this day. It has over 500 zones for players to explore through about 26 expansions. And the expansions are literally more content that expands the scope of the game. Usually these are the size of full games, like each. They have multiple zones in them, and sometimes they come with new races or new jobs. And what I mean by zones isn't just that this floor is a zone. No, these zones expand to where it would take at least 10 minutes for your character to walk from one end to the other, and that might be undershooting it. There are big areas for you to explore. These content updates have been fairly regular since the first expansion on April 24th, 2000, to as recently as December 18th, 2019. And if the subreddit's correct, they have a new one planned to come out on December of this year as well. So with this, it's no surprise that it was well received when it launched, as it earned the 1999 GameSpot Game of the Year award. It is remembered in history as the first commercially successful MMORPG with a 3D engine. You see these elevators right there? That elevator right there. I was confused by it so much when I first started. You have to click a little pedestal off to the side. But I was on the first floor trying to get to the second floor originally. You see the second one. Oh, no, that's just a stand. There's the second one. I didn't understand when I first got on it, when I was trying to get to the third floor, that there was a second elevator. I just kept riding this one up and down. Because when I looked around, the other elevator looked just like one of the stands around here. And that's a little bit of a problem I had early on with this game, is that a lot of the zone, once you get in them, a lot of the stuff kind of looks the same, and you can get lost really easy. And like I said, the map is no help whatsoever. This wasn't the first place I started out, actually. The tutorial that they start you out in is in a cave when you've been captured by kobolds, and you have to do a jailbreak with other slaves to get out of it. I didn't really like the tutorial at all. It took a long time. There were a lot of missions to get you acclimated to the control scheme. To be fair, by the time I got here, I was more than acclimated to it, and I was able to just keep going on about my day. But while I was playing it, it was not fun. I can't remember what I'm looking for at this area. I know I had to get bones. This wasn't the one where I needed to get the leaves, was it? I don't believe so. No, I needed to get like a steak from the butcher. I think that might be where I'm looking at right now, is I'm looking for the butcher. I'm also sorry that I couldn't show you the full screen. This is basically what I've been subjected to, is from being able to film on my phone on the computer. But you have at least my character and the drop down main chat down here. Aha! I see butchers. Oh, I think that butcher, Butcher Couture over there is the one that the mission said I needed to talk to. And how you talk to people is actually really interesting as well. You click on them and they'll be highlighted. You see this white ring around me, and now that red ring around him shows what I'm actually highlighted on. And then you press H, the H key, to hail, as in Hail, the characters, and that's how you talk to them. And he just gave me a piece of steak that I need for my mission. If I'm not mistaken, now I need to head outside to Dragon's Grove to fight oh no, not actually Dragon's Grove. It's the other area going towards the Blightmoor to fight a fisherman skeleton to get its essence. Yeah, here's what he has to say. The mission that I chose to videotape has me working for a dragon that serves the, I believe, Black Dragon? I don't remember the names. And they give you a lot of lore through all this reading, so it is what it is. But yeah, Vectra wanted me to get bones from the third floor, that steak, so that we could, quote-unquote, feel the meat. It's a weird quest, but I at least was able to get through it quickly. The other missions took a little bit longer. If you noticed, I had to double check that I was on the right elevator, because it still messes me up. I do really like the design of this city. It is a lot of gray, but I like the look of like how the elevators work and the kind of canopied look. And here I am looking around again, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go. There I am. The Hollows, that's where I need to go. One of the previous missions had me going to something called Dragon's Grove and the Hollow to get different leaves. But nowhere is it really ever listed that I could find that Dragon's Grove was, which is another area connected to that city. I at least know where the skeleton is on this, so I'm going straight to him. You can kind of see him off in the distance there. They make these games really tall. I don't know if flying ever actually becomes a thing, but at least in this area, it's not really encouraged, I guess. Yeah, that guy was really easy to kill. And somewhere it just had a pop-up where it has an essence that I can grab. Yeah, see that blue and pink down there is where I just grabbed the essence. So now I should be heading back to the Council of Six to turn in my quest. When you turn in the quest, you can get gear or money or reputation. I believe all I get from this is 1 platinum and some reputation. It says that I should be able to talk to the dragons, but I haven't gotten that far in this. So that you're completely aware, I have been playing this game probably for 10 hours at this point. It took me 8 of those to get through the tutorial. I I think that was mostly because I just didn't really understand what I was doing. I did run into a few players in the tutorial level, but I really haven't ran into other players in this area. I think it's one of the beginning areas, so it's not as populated, I guess. It's been interesting playing this game for the most part. I think I will continue it on, but I'll definitely need help to get on. It won't be something that I'm committing myself to. Yeah, here you can see that I'm starting to deliver things to him. You click on the character with your item, and then it'll give you this little menu to where you can then give it to him, and that's how you give NPCs their quest items. In future MMOs, they would pretty much combine all of these with like the text box, like in Final Fantasy XIV, for instance, and I think it's the same way in WoW. All of what the NPC is saying is in its own box, so it's not getting muddled in with the main chat. You don't really see it right now, but if other players were to come up here and start interacting with them, all of the chat that I would be reading would keep getting moved up, and I wouldn't be able to actually read it. I would have to actually keep going back through the main chat to find what I was reading, and it would keep moving the more stuff was put in there. So I'm glad that in future ones they moved it out, and they also pretty much have it to where all the interaction you have with those NPCs is in that window. I do think that I'm going to be doing Final Fantasy XIV as one of my 2 personal choice videos, and then we'll really get to be able to see a difference in where MMOs were and where they are now. The main framework is the exact same. You go to NPCs, they give you quests, and in the beginning, the quests are all like fetch quest. Go get this item, kill this thing, and come back. I have to imagine that further on down the line in these games, it would be go into this fortress and kill this boss, or slay a dragon, or maybe even more extreme fetch quests, like find the MacGuffin that will save the world and bring it back. But as far as I'm like a level 11 Shadow Knight, I'm only getting grunt work. It was fun though, and I'm glad that I got my chance to play it. That about wraps up this week's journal. Come back next week and we're going to be looking at another game. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye!